Yuułuʔił̔atḥ Nanimʔsaqŭasc Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. My English name is Tyson Touchie. I'm from the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ First Nation, and we're sitting here in Hitatsu at the original village site of the Hitatsu people. And I'm going to tell you the story of Hasaas. The story covers a lot of teachings that were important back then and are even more important now. So you have to use your imagination and think back to when our ancestors, the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, lived here exclusively. So there was no Yuułuʔił̔at, there was no developments. We were here with our great-great-great-grandfathers to experience this story. Hasaas grew up in his house with 3 older brothers, and they were really revered in the community. They provided for their people. They were great seal hunters. They were great fishermen. They always set the example for how to live your life and succeed as Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. They would always be up early in the morning to go out to their bathing spots and prepare for their hunt. So at daybreak, they would be heading out to bath in the river, to use their family traditions to get ready to prepare. So this is really important, and it's something that's helped our people for as long as we've lived here. At the other side of the spectrum, you had Hasaas. His family thought he was really lazy because he is probably smaller than them. He always slept in, and he just seemed like a lazy bum. His brothers, being really active and really contributing to their community, kind of picked on him a little bit, called him names, and would dump water on him to tell him to get up, and do something. Even his dad would get disgusted with him because they thought he was sleeping in all day and not doing anything. So he would take a chamber pot, which we call a kista. So at night you would use this pot to go pee, and no one would want to get up and go outside to go use the washroom. So one day his dad just couldn't take it anymore, and he says, "Listen, you want to be a lazy dog? You want to be a stinking dog?" And he picked that kista up and dumped pee all over him and kicked him out of the house and said, "Get out of here, you're a bottom dweller. You're Hasaas, go on, get out of here." So they compared him to a crab. There was no prestige in that name at all. What they didn't know was that even though Hasaas stayed outside, he seemed to be crawling around even under the house, under the floorboards. What they didn't know was that he was actually getting up before his brothers. So Hasaas, before anybody woke up, even before the animals woke up, would head out to his bathing spots up the mountain, in the rivers, and he would be preparing himself, rubbing himself with his own medicines that he knew of, bathing in the river, which is really cold, and praying to the Creator to help him do what he has to do. So being there that early, Hasaas would hear the birds wake up, start to hear them chirping. He would notice the animals waking up. He would even see the wolves come out, which for Nuchanoth people is really significant. The Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, or the wolf, were considered to be just like us, to be human, just like the killer whales, the kakowin. They were considered to be the same. So he was fascinated by the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, and he'd see them come out of the bush, and they wouldn't notice him, but he'd watch them come down to the beach, and they'd either be hunting or looking for something to eat. He would even notice his brothers coming out. So Hasaas was, to me, so well prepared that he went unnoticed. His brothers didn't notice him out there. The wildlife probably didn't notice him out there. He would make it back to his bedroll outside and sneak back under the cedar blanket and take some ashes from the fire, dump a little bit on top of himself on his blanket to fool everybody, to make him think he was been sleeping all day. So the same thing would happen. They'd come back, they'd notice him sleeping there, and only regard him as being lazy, when really he was up preparing all that time. So Hasaas, being fascinated with the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, with the wolf, wanted to see where they go. He wanted to see where they live. So he came back down the beach and he found a seal carcass. He gutted it and opened it up, took the guts out and climbed in there and sealed it up. He sewed it up from the inside so the wolves or anybody would see him. So it kind of gives you an idea that I thought because he could do that, he is probably a smaller guy. He probably wasn't a big, huge man. So he was able to fit inside the seal and go unnoticed. Sure enough, he heard the wolves coming. He heard their feet padding on the sand. They grabbed that seal carcass and threw it up on the back of a big wolf, the alpha male. And off they went running. So you kind of picture yourself inside of this seal carcass. And he could see out of a tiny little slit that he could feel that they hit the bush and that they start running up. So to Hasaas, he started thinking, oh, we're going up the mountain. So Hasaas stayed quiet, and he could, you can imagine what that would feel like, bumping around inside of a seal carcass on the back of a wolf. They finally put him down. They reached their house, their den, and Hasaas, peeking out of the seal carcass, seen the wolf stop, and the whole pack took off their furs, and he is amazed to see that they were actually Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. They were human wearing a wolf's skin. So Hasaas was amazed, like he didn't expect to see what was happening. And he peeked around and could see all these treasures that the wolves had. So different paddles and instruments, war clubs, everything you could think of. The wolves were rich. So sure enough, the wolves started to want to go and get at the seal. So they start cutting it open. And as soon as they do, what the heck, there's Hasaas staring out at them. And they're really amazed. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? So they called the wolf chief. They called their Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, and they didn't know what to do because they'd been discovered. So the chief came, and he didn't want to kill him. I think he appreciated Hasaas for what he'd done, and that he was a good man. He was prepared, he was cleansed, and he was able to see them. So the chief just offered him. He said, you know what? We don't want to harm you, but you can't tell anybody about us. We'll let you take anything you want from what you see here. And Hasaas looked at it all and just went over to the war clubs right away. And he noticed one in particular. He says, hey, I'll take this one. And the wolf said, no, you can't take that one. Pick any other one. And Hasaas pressed on. He says, well, I want that one. And he's like, well, this one is super powerful. This club can kill a man if you just point it at him. One point and that man's gonna die. So this is too powerful for you. So Hasaas started wanting it even more. So he actually ended up fooling the wolves and taking that club anyways, and he hid it inside of a knot. Some cedar trees are hollowed out, and he hid it in there and made his way back to his village. So one day, Hasaas was gonna head out on his own as usual while everyone else was doing their thing. And he was gonna go patrol inside the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ harbor. So he went back and he got that club for protection. So off he went inside the harbor. And the one really neat thing about our harbor is that it projects sound really well. They were able to communicate really effectively. So Hasaas was heading across the bay all by himself, paddling along really quiet, and he could hear way off in front of Chucha, which is the island in front of the harbor. And he could hear people making schemes. So he got curious, pulled his canoe up on the beach and climbed a rock, and he was able to see right out there, and he can see two war canoes, two Yuułuʔił̔atḥ war canoes, fresh from raiding in Yuułuʔił̔atḥ country, which is our neighbors. And they were getting ready to invade our harbor here. And Hasaas was the only one to confront them. So he took his war club and he looked out at him. He says, "Hey, what are you guys doing? This is Yuułuʔił̔atḥ territory. Get the heck out of here." And those raiders just looked at him and laughed. The single little guy sitting there trying to tell him to go. So they sent over a scout canoe with 3 guys in it. And they said, "Yeah, you better get out of here. We're gonna mess you up and end you right here." And Hasaas warned them. He says, "No, you better get out of here, or I'm gonna kill you and all these raiders out here. You're not supposed to be here." So they start coming at him. He took his war club, pointed it at them. They all died. And they tipped. Some say it split their canoe. But all 3 of them gone like that. So Hasaas looked out at the other canoes and said, "Now you guys better go, or the same thing's gonna happen to you." And of course, 2 big war canoes not being threatened by Hasaas at all. They sent another war canoe in after him to go deal with this guy. And he took out that war club, pointed it at them. They're all dead, all gone, the whole canoe. So the other canoe could see the power of this new weapon that he had, that it really could kill them all just by pointing it at them. Just gathered up their war canoe and towed it back, and Hasaas prevented the invasion of Hitatsu in the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ harbor, all by himself with the weapon that he got from the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. So that's where the story ties up, and there are a lot of teachings about that. So for me, it's important to acknowledge where that story came from. And I think for us as Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, it's really important that we embrace it as our own. There's so many stories that are generic to all of Nuuch'anuth or all of the Northwest Coast. Hasaas is a story that's significant for us. And I just wanted to acknowledge Asia Touchie and Samantha Touchie for reaching out to our uncle Ron Hamilton, who heard the story from late Jessie Mack, and she heard it from her elders and shared it with Ron. So I think for us, being here at this beach makes it really significant. So I just wanted to acknowledge them and talk about some of the teachings that stem from that story, because they're really important. And us living in a modern economy with a new culture, might think some of it is old-fashioned, but they're really science is starting to catch up with our worldview and starting to find out that there's a lot of healthy teachings there. So the very first lesson that I took from that story right away is how important it is to prepare. There's an old, out-of-date stereotype that Indian time is being late. When I was being corrected by one of my mentors, was that no, Indian time is being prepared. So the brothers that were looked up to, that were publicly celebrated, they went to the river. They went to the water first to prepare. And I really know that that's a powerful medicine for us. Other First Nations have smudging, sweat lodges, and those are all really good, powerful medicines. But for us here at home, for as long as we know, all that power and preparation came from going to the water. Every family had their own teaching on how to usimsh, and that isn't part of the story, but could be. A lot of times our storytellers would integrate how to live your life correctly. So the older brothers were setting that example, that you prepare before you go and do any type of harvesting. And that went for everybody, not just the hunters, but even the women that were gathering or getting cedar, preparing to go get seafood. You know, they did the same thing. So it was neat that they thought Hasaas wasn't doing that, when in reality he was. Which brings me to the second teaching, that what you do for your spirituality is yours, and the power comes from keeping it yours. That's another important teaching, that when you brag about it, or you say you go on Facebook and post, hey, I went today to the river, I feel great. The teaching is that all the power that you got from that experience is gone. It's between you, where you went, and your teachings from your people. So that was another important teaching. I won't say one's more important than another, but the story covers those two teachings. And Hasaas was able to see things that we couldn't, they couldn't, because he was more prepared than even his brothers. He was more cleansed, more spiritual than anybody. He was even up before the animals. He was able to trick the wolves to go up to their house, to their den, and see who they were. So for me, that's what I took from the story right away, was prepare for what's coming. And Hasaas didn't know what was coming, but he was prepared, to the point where he even, he stole that weapon. But at the same time, that weapon, that new technology that he had, saved all of his people. And I don't know, maybe over time the story was lost, but it's back again. I don't know if they celebrated Hasaas or not. My theory is that maybe not, because it's one of our teachings not to brag about what you do, not to boast about what you do. I wouldn't be surprised if Hasaas came back to his camp, laid under his cedar blanket, put some ashes over top of him, and went to sleep. So for me, that's a specific story for Yuułuʔił̔atḥ to remember, that everybody has something to contribute. And as soon as we write somebody off and think that they're nothing, that they're a stinky, smelly dog, then we have a problem. Hasaas was that kid that was considered to be useless, but turned out to be one of the greatest warriors that Yuułuʔił̔atḥ has ever known. They saved. I'm here because he was there, and I really appreciate that part of the story. The other one is the new technology that he found. And, the raiders had to learn the hard way that, saved his people. I don't know if that's celebrated enough. I know for me, it encourages me. I know we're a little fearful of new technology, but I really think that it doesn't even have to be young people. It could be knowledgeable people within our own community that could understand a new technology that can ultimately save us. And us being in this COVID-19 crisis right now, that could be a microbiologist, somebody that a light bulb might go off. Maybe they're prepared enough to see something that the other scientists can't see. So I'm encouraged that this story is coming out, and that it has a lot of teachings that are really significant for Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, for Cluis people all over the coast, and for all of our neighbors across the bay in Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. The teachings for our youngsters, they're universal. It's from right here, and it makes me feel proud. I'm really happy that my Uncle Ron Hamilton shared that story, and that my cousin Asia recorded it So it's here now. I'm glad that we're producing it on video, and I think it's a story that could be expanded to include those teachings. This is how I know how my family Yuułuʔił̔atḥ, but for you to take that opportunity to go out and maybe ask grandma or grandpa, what did our family do? And if they don't know, then you can go ask somebody who might know. But keep looking, because that preparation, it could lead to great things, even if it's not real evident. But the story of Hasaas emphasizes that. I think it really emphasizes a person's potential, their ability to do things that won't always be celebrated, won't always be posted on Facebook or paraded down the street, but could teach people how and who we are for as long as we're here. So that's my impression of Hasaas and the Yuułuʔił̔atḥ people and our culture. True. Now that I've shared that, and I really hope our people could embrace this story, and I think there's more that could be done. I think we could start to visualize how Hasaas could have looked. I think when we start to embrace the story and think about how we weave that back into our culture and use it to teach our people about what's really important in life. And for me, that story of Hasaas outlines that. And it's really simple. It's going to the water and starting to learn what your family did when they did Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. I had an uncle tell me of what my family did as Touchies when we went to the water. And it's really significant as Yuułuʔił̔atḥ. There's portions of that story that we can retell in our own language, which is exciting to me because I don't know my language, but I want to learn what those, the proper way to say those words are, and just share that this happened right here. I really balance between what I think really happened and what was story. And usually the truth's in the middle. So I find it gets me excited to hear this story because it just happened here and you could see those landmarks. Like you can look at Chucha and know for sure that if you were gonna raid this harbor, you would probably be hiding out of view from this beach. So Hasaas knew a high point, and it was neat to talk with an elder, Richard Munday, say, yeah, I went to go look at that where he could see. I went there, I climbed up there, I know where it is. I know where he could have, from the water, got to a high point to see over. So that's exciting. I really think that there's such an opportunity for us to teach our people that these place names are so significant because that, that happened right there, and it gets me excited that, a lot of our stories aren't just classified as myth or fictional, but they're really teaching how to live your life properly. And I really appreciate that. So for me, finding people that maybe could turn it into a dramatized series, I'm all for it. I mean, I always joke around that I want to call Mel Gibson and get him in to come make a movie, but it would probably just turn into this big kill fest. But, I really think that there's potential for that. This place is special, and so are the people. Hasaas was special. His brothers were special, and I really think it's neat for the First Nations community to start identifying not just with their past, but with new technology and where we're going to go in the future. That's really how our worldview works. It isn't just forget about the past, that already happened. I think when you think about stories like Hasaas, it's like, no, it's still happening right now. And I think we lean too much on our youth and expect them that they're going to fix everything. I don't think that's it. The knowledgeable people, they can help fix things. And I think it's an encouraging story that encourages you to go do it. Nobody asked Hasaas to go patrol the harbor all by himself. He just did it. And I really think that that's another aspect to the story that's important. Nobody told him to wake up before the sun comes up and go out there and bath and prepare. He did it. He discovered his medicines too. So if you find you can't find anybody that doesn't know what your family did in the river, that's okay. But if you go do it, you're going to be stronger for it. So for me, whether or not anybody produces anything, it's okay. But continuing the story, that's where the power is. Chew!